Couple days ago, Switzerland got hit with the news that Ex Libris is closing. For those of you who are not particularly familiar with that name, that's a bookstore. One that is very nostalgic to a lot of us, I would say. I remember myself that I did spend a lot of my youth in those stores buying CDs and roaming for books. They're to close all 15 stores in Switzerland. I mean, at this point, there's not that many stores left. I'm pretty sure they had a lot more stores in the past as well, because I remember just in the region I'm at, there were 2 nearby, and those have been gone for a really long time now. The book chain Ex Libris will close all of its 15 branches in Switzerland at the end of the year. Migros, to which the company belongs, wrote this in a press release on Friday morning. What are the consequences for the book offering? Ex Libris online business will be integrated into Galaxus in the future. Actually, it makes sense. The online retailer is also 70% owned by Migros. Ex Libris book business will be gradually transferred to the online department store Galaxus, according to Migros. How many people are affected? Ex Libris employs 230 people affected by the closure. What will happen next for these employees is unclear. Unfortunately, job cuts are not out of the question. Do I have to point out that unemployment is on the rise in Switzerland? We actually get a lot of these news lately of companies closing down, bigger companies in particular. Migros has had trouble for a while now. They've closed a bunch of their stores. I think a lot of those employees actually flooded the unemployment market. But I guess that's not really the topic that I want to talk about today. What is changing for the clientele? According to Migros, none of this should have any impact on customers. In the future, orders will continue to be possible both via Galaxus.ch and until 2027 via Ex Libris. What happened to Ex Libris before? The book chain hasn't been doing particularly well for years. At the beginning of 2018, CEO Daniel Rötlin announced that 43 stores would have to be closed. 114 jobs were lost in the process. A total of 60 branches were closed in previous years. I mean, I feel like that's been a long time coming, to be honest. Those bookstores have not been doing well. People are just not really going out and shopping as much as they used to. There's been a bunch of news already about shopping centers looking like ghost towns, more or less, because there's literally no stores coming in. And I mean, we did this to ourselves, right? We have all these online shops at this point. It's so convenient to just order to your door. Why should you travel to a bookstore and roam through books and then you probably don't even find what you're actually looking for? Nonetheless, I think this is an important topic to talk about, because in our society, in terms of culture and connection, we have 3 spots where we usually connect with people and also spend our time. The first one would be our homes, the second would be work, and then we're left with third places like these: stores, cafes, bars, hospitality in general, cultural hubs like museums and theater, parks even, anywhere where we can come together as a community. And I think with our desire for convenience and comfort, we've been killing a lot of those places. It's clearly not particularly great for our mental health, right? I mean, if we're all just conveniently stuck at home, then how are we supposed to connect with people? How are we supposed to build proper relationships and actually find our own communities? I think it's kind of inevitable at this point that maybe retail stores are not going to be part of our society in future anymore. But this is where I see hospitality actually filling the spot and offering a solution instead. You know, I've worked in hospitality now for several years, and I'm currently actively closing the door in that chapter, but it doesn't mean that I don't care about that industry. I do really love this industry because it brought me a lot of connections and gave me a sense of community as well. But the way hospitality is being treated in Switzerland is honestly pretty horrendous. Last year I intended to open up my bar, and I did a lot of the planning and finances and just trying to organize and make sense of it all. And it's honestly been really difficult because, especially in Switzerland, running it as a business, it's genuinely a balancing act. Even just the financing part of it all is such a delicate balance of paying rent and paying staff and everything in between. It's barely even profitable. And honestly, with all the news that we've been having about places closing down, it clearly isn't profitable at all for most places. I mean, you also have to consider that a lot of places at this point are trying to be extra fancy to get people in, but at the same time, people have less money to spend, so they're not gonna go to those places. It's a vicious cycle. And honestly, in between all those Michelin pointed restaurants, I really miss just having a basic Swiss kitchen restaurant or something where I can go in and have basic food, not pay too much money, have a great time, and walk out and be happy. I think the other issue that I encountered during this whole planning phase is that it was incredibly difficult to actually find a spot for hospitality. Restaurants maybe a little less, but bars was particularly difficult. And it's also expensive because taking over a place, it's got a certain amount of money that's already been put into it, which you do have to invest. But even if you were to rent an empty place and build it all up by yourself, it's damn near impossible because most places don't even rent to anyone who wants to run a hospitality business. Not to mention that it's incredibly difficult to find somebody who would actually willingly sponsor such an endeavor. Like, banks over here are absolutely not going to give you any money for that. It's just not profitable enough to run a hospitality business. And finding anyone outside of this, I feel like, is maybe even more difficult because, well, if banks are not going to sponsor you, then why should a private person or an angel investor or anything like that do that? But I think hospitality has such a strong potential to be a cultural spot for people to come together and build a community. Here where I live, we actually have a pretty interesting bar, which is basically a hybrid between a bar with cheap drinks, music, theater, and it's probably the place that has the most people coming in the city. People go in there and have a good time, and they are not expected to leave a table in 2 hours because, oh well, they have to make money and they have to occupy the table with the next guest. It's just a fun spot to hang out and have a good time together. And I think this is something Switzerland should probably invest in more. We already have pretty good cultural support in terms of museums and theater and stuff like that. I think we should and could expand that to hospitality and make those places more interesting as well. And maybe even do hybrids like this bar does, right? Personally, do I want to go to a bookstore or a library and spend hours there? No, not really. But I would love to go to a cafe that has an extensive library where I could pick out a book and sit there for a few hours and read that. I appreciate going out and have a drink or two with a friend at a bar. But at the same time, I could have the same drinks at home or grab a beer and drink it in the park. But I personally would be so much more enticed to actually walk into a bar if they, say, had live music, had a live band there. I think some of my best memories were probably at Irish pubs where there was a live band and all the Irish people came together and started singing and dancing along. What does a retail store offer in comparison, you know? Yes, they have books, and yes, they have culture, and yes, I will have a brief conversation with a salesperson there. If I wanted to connect with people, I would much rather go to a bar with live music, with interesting people there. And you might ask me, why not join some sort of club? Well, it's fucking expensive here, you know? I genuinely just don't have enough money for the clubs here because they're all astronomically expensive. But I can sure as hell spend like 15 francs or so at a bar every other week. I think hospitality would actually offer a more affordable and more approachable way to connect to your own community and to create one to begin with. But I think in Switzerland especially, it just really needs way more support. I actually got into hospitality in Australia, and that's a completely different vibe there. People there understand that a bar is a stage. It's entertainment for the people that are walking in. So you put on a bit of a show, you have fun, you make fancy drinks. A lot of places there are pretty small, but also a lot of them still offer some sort of entertainment, some sort of live music perhaps, or something historical, or a tasting, or anything really. They're just really putting in the effort to make it interesting and entertaining and to connect to you as well. I've also looked into it a little bit, and from a legal perspective, like the way the states or the government handles it is way different compared to Switzerland especially, Because here I feel like it's often looked at as a nuisance, like a noise complaint waiting to happen. And it has been slowly improving with longer opening times in summer and a little less strict regulations in that regard. But that's a really small step in the right direction. Whereas in Australia, they really regard it as part of the culture. And they also really encourage landlords to actually rent out those spaces to bars and restaurants. While here in Switzerland, they would rather keep a space empty if they can't find somebody who actually is willing to pay the price for it. I guess it's better not to make any money at all with your property than to rent it out for a little cheaper. You know, the reason why I'm leaving hospitality in the first place is because the industry has been deteriorating and it just hasn't been fun working in hospitality anymore. I actually love nothing more than to serve people and make them happy and let them have a good time. But it's just really difficult to do when you're constantly pushed to just make the next sale. It's at this point all about numbers and the soul of hospitality is actually lost. I mean, back in Australia, this is why I started in the first place. I just really felt it, you know. And here in Switzerland, I've worked in different places, but none of them stuck because literally none of them really had a soul. Back in the old days, hospitality basically used to be a place for travelers to come home in a sense and refuel. It used to be a place of restoration, and I think we've forgotten about this here a long time ago. I think those people here who are actively running businesses still and trying to open up new things, they do genuinely still believe in that idea. But it's been increasingly more difficult to actually open up a place in here, let alone run it successfully. I just really wish Switzerland would give as much support to hospitality as they do to cultural centers. I mean, I think at this point we can and should consider hospitality as a spot for cultural exchange as well, considering the loneliness epidemic that we're all experiencing. And if there is one spot where anyone can go at any time, it's a bar. I mean, how many different interesting people have I met just because I decided to go to a bar one night? And yes, not all of those encounters are great, but especially when it was some sort of cultural event or live music or even a tasting, you know what kind of people are coming in. I guess I just really miss Australian hospitality. Like, that industry was a real, true community. And I think I've been comparing it with Switzerland ever since I came back here. I just wish it was a little more like this here as well. Anyway, I think that's my rant for the day. I hope you enjoyed me rambling on about this. Let me know what you think down in the comments, leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.